Okay, we're gonna be talking about sales and customer service, and even a little bit about the golden rule. But I worked in sales myself, and at first when I started working in sales, you find it's usually often the conception of what sales would be is that you try to sell something. Yeah, because obviously your corporation is profit motivated, and you want to sell the product. But do you sell more of a product by doing your best to just make a sale? And well, let's think about it. When you put yourself in the customer's shoes, okay, as a customer, what would allow you to want to buy something? Okay, and when somebody is selling to you and you're the customer, what can you learn as a customer to do sales better when you start working back in sales and customer service? Okay, and the thing is it's actually most important to think like the customer in order to do the best job when you are working in customer service and sales. And here's why. Because when you're the customer, you want to be understood. You want to be understood. And it feels good to be understood. Yep. And just ask yourself when you walk into a store and the salesperson is just trying to sell you something, is it a good feeling? No, not really, right? Because it kind of seems like they just want to make a quick buck and they don't really care about you. And really, this actually results in less sales. It does. Um, so when you think like the customer, because we're all customers. Yeah, even a CEO for a company is still a consumer, and we all have to deal with customer service and sales. And when we ask ourselves what we want as a customer, we want to be sought out and in order to be understood why we are there and why we want to buy what we want to buy. Okay, because when we are sought out to be understood for why we're at a store, and the seeking to understand the customer is something that is not frowned upon but smiled upon because it makes you feel good when somebody is trying to understand why you're there, right? So now when you think about it as a customer and you're in the store, uh, you realize, yeah, I want somebody to ask me to know why I'm there, as opposed to assuming why I am there. And when somebody is trying to sell to me and they never actually ask me, why I'm there in the first place and what I'm looking to buy, I think in my head and kind of roll my eyes, and I'm just kind of thinking, geez, I think I'll just look around. Yeah, because that's not actually what you want as a customer. No, it's not. And when you start thinking like a customer, you realize, yeah, when I go buy something, I want someone to help me, in purchasing what I want to purchase, but I want them to ask me, as how would they actually know what I want if they didn't ask? Yeah. So let's just run through a scenario, and one person is going to be walking into a store, and it doesn't matter. They want A, okay, and when they walk into the store in the first scenario, the salesperson then wants to make more money, and the A that the customer wants is not what the salesperson tries to sell them, and why? Because A is maybe the affordable item that suits their needs, okay, but then they make less money and they sell B, C, and D, okay, because they want to make more money for their store. And when the customer service salesperson is trying to sell you on B, C, and D, and then maybe they interrupt you on why you're looking at A, for example, on why you would want A, and they don't listen to you because they're trying to make more money, for example. Then you say to yourself, I came here looking for A. They're trying to sell me B, C, and D. And then, yeah, you kind of don't really want to be there anymore, do you? No, not really. Okay. And so, in the other scenario, a person walks in looking for A. And what happens is the salesperson then decides to ask them what brought them to this store. And again, now it's a question instead of an assumption to seek to understand the customer. So they ask, what brought you into the store today, as opposed to just how can I help you? Why did you come to the store today? Because I would like to help you, but I want to know why, so I know how to help you. And then, as the customer, thinking, "Oh, perfect! This person is trying to figure out me as a customer, and that makes it makes you feel good. It's a good feeling." Okay, and you say, "Well, I was browsing the website and I was looking at A, and when I looked at A, the reason I was looking at A because I want to be doing this with A, and it allows me to do that, and those are the kind of things that I want to be doing with this product." And then, you could, okay, this is the second scenario. You could, as a salesperson, then just make that sale on it. You could, because you just want to make the sale. Okay, and when you see the dollar signs light up because they came in for A, you just sell A. Okay, but then you just sold A. Now, in the third scenario, everything happens the same way, but the third salesperson, instead of just settling on them wanting A and realizing that's already the sale, they ask more questions. Is there anybody else that would be using this product? I realized that you told me, why you want it, what you're going to be doing it, but you didn't tell me where you would be using it. And, if you don't mind me asking, could I ask where you would be using it so I can understand if this is the best product that would suit your needs? And as the customer then describes, they're like, "Oh, I'm glad you asked. I would be using it in, this place and that place and whatever." Okay. And then you realize, well, now that I know that, and I know that B, okay, is not just a higher priced item, but they just told me, yeah, where they would be using it. And I know that B not only does what they want to do with it, and how they want to use it and why they're going to be using it, but now that I know where they're also going to be using it, I then recommend B because B can be used in both locations, this and that, whereas A would only be used in that location. And you're not actually just selling it to them. You ask the question, you listen to them, and you say, based off of what you just said, I would recommend B towards you because I know A would be used in that location, but B would actually be able to be used in this and that location. And since this is something that you would wanting to be doing with it, you would then be able to use B in both areas. Okay. And then, that's maybe the third scenario. And if everything happened like that, then you settle on B. But in the fourth scenario, okay, then you say, well, hold on, is there anybody else? Like who else would be using it? You know what I mean? Besides yourself. And then, they explain, oh yeah, somebody else in my family would also be using it as well. And then when you realize that C is a more multi-purpose item that allows for greater user friendliness between multiple users, you say, well, because of what you told me, I would recommend C because it allows not only for what you want to do with it, okay, why you want it and how you're going to use it, but it can be used in the this and that locations where you would be using it. But because you told me that also another person would be using this product, I know that C allows for that diversity with multiple users using that product, whereas A or B does not. So given this, I would then recommend C. Okay, and you're kind of doing the who, what, when, and that's what we didn't cover. And then they say, well, when I would be using it. Now you're at the fifth scenario because maybe you stopped at C on four and you never actually asked when would you be using it. And then when they say, well, when I would be using it is actually all day, every day, but also sometimes during the late evening when the sun goes down. And then you say, well, that's very interesting that you say that because ABC works within the daytime, But the benefit of D is, yeah, it actually works in the night as well, because maybe it has a little glow to it. You know what I mean? And what happened is, in the fifth scenario, you ask the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and all these kind of things. It's actually six, because who, what, when, where, why, and how. Okay, and when you went through all these different scenarios and you asked all these questions, yeah, one guy the first guy or whatever person would just try to sell B, C, and D to them when they came in for A, and then they rolled their eyes and walked away. The second person, realized they wanted A and just went for the quick buck. The third individual then, asked more questions and found out that B, and then more questions in the fourth, and then found it was C, and then with more questions again, being the fifth, yeah, oh, it's actually, now that I know the who, what, when, where, why, and how on what you would want to be doing with this product, D fits all your needs. And because it suits all your needs as a customer on how you wanted to use this product, the reason you are not selling it to them, but you're doing your best job, is because you listened to them. And you are then recommending what for them to buy, because you're saying, I listened to you. I listened to all the things that you told me that you want to be doing with this product. And the reason I am recommending D is because it, yes, suits your needs for all of the who, what, when, where, and why, and how you would be using this product. You see? And so then when you go back to the first scenario, you realize, yeah, they came in for A. That is what they wanted. But they only did so much research on the website, and then they returned A. And then with B, they returned B, and they returned C, because even C, yeah, they were using it, and then they realized it wasn't glowing in the dark, and they had no idea what they were doing. Okay, and now with all those questions being asked, because you are not a sales specialist to make the best sale, you are a needs specialist, and you seek to understand what somebody's needs are when they use a product. Okay. And this is how you actually can not only just embrace profit motivation, but this does result in the best sales, because everybody wants to be understood and everybody wants to be told the truth. It is the number one thing that people look for in a company that is selling a product, is to tell the truth. And the best way to tell the truth is to ask questions. Because you don't know how much truth you can share with them if you don't ask those questions, and you just make assumptions that you don't actually know. You don't actually know. Yeah. And so when I first was working in sales, I was also under the impression that, hey, why don't I just try and make the sale? And I realized when I looked at the body language and listened to the tone of voice from the customers that I was dealing with, they knew that I was just trying to make a sale. And I could tell it wasn't really just a sense of discomfort. It was kind of like a sense of, kind of being upset. Because it's like, guy doesn't really care about me. And that's understandable. And that's why what we used to do is we would do kind of like mock engagements. Where I would be a customer service and salesperson, and when there's nobody else in the store, another staff member would be a customer. Yeah. And what happened is that customer would come in for something, and I would ask all these questions and then come to these kinds of conclusions. And because, yes, it's not always when you do these engagements, the idea is not to just sell them what they are looking for. The idea is to, yes, come to the conclusion that when you ask all these questions, it's not actually what they're looking for, when you can ask the questions to know what they're looking for. Yeah. And so when I would do this, I then realized how to re-engage with the customer. And I realized, yeah, I also would want to be sought out to be understood, what I actually want to be doing with the product in all aspects of how that product would be used. Because when I have all that information as a customer on, my needs on what I would be doing with the product, I then feel good about somebody seeking to understand all the different aspects of how I would use a product, because then I feel like I'm being cared for. Yes, it's just like it's caring. Okay, and it makes you feel good. It's a good feeling to be cared for. And the salesperson that is just throwing information at you, yeah, we all know it doesn't feel like they care for you. It doesn't. And that's why when you think like the customer as opposed to the salesperson, you will be not a salesperson, but a needs specialist. Yeah, because when you understand what the needs are of the person, you will make the sale. And even if you don't, you're going to get their loyalty. And why? The reason you will get their loyalty is because you sought out to understand them. And now, even when they're not buying today, they know they can trust you. They know that you're doing your best job to understand what their needs are. And maybe they didn't want to buy D because they also realized that they couldn't afford it at that time. And then you realize, oh, you're actually not going to need this using in the product at the nighttime until about 2 months from now. That's when you're going to begin using it during the later evenings, okay, with your late night parties or whatever it is, okay. And you then realize, well, maybe your company, I'm not saying you do, but let's say your company had like a 3 months exchange program, like my company did. I would actually do this every once in a while, where I'd say, you could have C for now that would meet the 5 needs that you have. And when you have 90 days to exchange C back for D and just pay the difference, um, let's go through your budget. And then we can come to the understanding that when you buy C today, that meets your needs for the next 60 days. And then you have the option, as well as the surplus amount of income that allows you to then buy D 60 days later. Okay, then you can come back with C and you exchange you do the exchange. And obviously this would have to be part of the policies and procedures of your company. And if that's not the case, well, yeah, you can't do something like that. But what could you do should you not have those kinds of policies and procedures on an exchange rate like that? You could say, well, you certainly could, just settle with C. But when I know you're not working with D, I want to do what's in the best interest of you. Okay, the customer, and then again, they feel cared for. And you could even say, well, if you can't afford D right now, okay, why don't you just tell me a little bit about how you spend money every day, and let's talk about your budget, and we together we can figure out how this could be something that could be affordable, so you could actually get D that would suit all your needs from 60 days from now when you want to be using it in the evening. And if they don't want to share that information, you should listen. You should. And at that time, you did your best job. And if it's not something that they want to share with you, you should listen. You should, because again, your job is to understand them and treat them with respect, and that's why they will trust you. Okay. So if that's the case, and they know that they can't use C during the evenings, at least they know. At least they know. But maybe what they say is, well, I actually could hold off on a bit because, I do want to have D. I do. And then you say, okay, well, what do you kind of do on a daily basis when it comes to spending your money? And they say, okay, well, I certainly like having my coffee in the mornings, but because, I'm a pretty busy guy, I pick up my coffee at McDonald's. I get the sausage egg McMuffin, and I also get the hash brown. And I like the whole meal because I need enough to get through the day. Okay, sure. And then you ask them, well, how much is the meal if you didn't get the hash brown, and you just got the coffee and the sausage and egg McMuffin? Okay, and then you realize that would that be enough for you to still get by? And then maybe what you could do, instead of the hash brown that, let's just say, is $1, you could have something at the grocery store that's 50 cents but kind of the same value, right? And then there's 50 cents every day that you are saving, right? And it's only 50 cents, but what you're doing is you're going through their budget with them, and you're realizing how they can take their budget and work with what they got while they're working with it and say, would you be willing to have a little bit less of some of the things that you are doing on a daily basis for now, so that you can get the D? And then when you have that little bit of extra that you saved to afford D, yeah, you could then just go back to the way you're doing things by just having a little bit less of what you do now that you don't actually need, but it's a want, and it allows you to get the need that you have for D. And then when you have that, a little bit of extra that you save, and you get the D that you need, because you know you want to use it in the evening, you can then go right back to the way you were doing things before by just having a little temporary lapse in between. Okay? And I would do this with my customers because I knew sometimes, it really was maybe a more expensive product that they couldn't afford, because they also tell the truth. And they just say, I can't. If you can't, you can't, right? And there's no point in me trying to pressure somebody into buying something that they know in their head they can't afford, okay? Because that could actually be insulting. And why? Because maybe he's a dad, or it's a mom, and they're saying, yeah, if I bought D, I don't really have enough for what my kids need to go to school. You know what I mean? Totally understandable. Totally understandable, you see? And that's why when you start developing this relationship with the customer where you just stay honest and you allow them to be honest with you so that you can help them as best to your ability, you will then become the most successful sales and customer service person in your store that you work in or what you're doing. Because, again, this rises loyalty. It's empathetic, not really, but compassionate, because you're showing that you care for them, which makes them feel good. And that's why they want to come back to you. And when you're always telling the truth and you're asking the right questions to get the information to allow you to come to the recommendation, you're still not telling them to buy it. Because no, you don't want to be told what to do. You don't. You don't. It's not saying, you better buy this now because, it's going to suit all your needs. Why wouldn't you buy it? That's a mocking gesture, okay? Whereas the better way to go about it that would make you feel good when you're the customer, right, is to say, well, I certainly listen to you. And the reason I recommend this is because I know that from what you told me, all these needs that you have on how you want to use the product, I know that D would suit all those needs. And I want you to be happy with what you're going home with. Yep. Okay, so when you do all these things, you realize, I could just sell. I could. Or I could take the time to ask the questions in order to make a sale that fits the customer's needs and allows them to be understood. Raise the loyalty, not just for yourself, but your brand name, okay? And allow for the understanding and the truth that everybody looks for as the number one thing in somebody that works in customer service and sales. The truth. Yeah. And why? It's very simple. As soon as you don't tell the truth in your occupation when you are dealing with somebody and they find out, what happens after that? It doesn't matter what you say after that. They don't know if you're telling the truth, and then, they're not listening. And listening is half of, no, I wouldn't call it a battle, but half of the relationship. Yeah. And then seeking to understand by asking these questions adds up. And then again, it's not about pressuring somebody because we don't feel good to be pressured. It's not a good feeling. No, it's not. But it does feel good when you are listened to. And as opposed to being pressured, you are just recommended. And you have to be willing to make the recommendation, but also know it is better to not make that sale today if they don't want to buy it. Because they're going to feel good about that too. And if anything, they're going to come back to see you because of how you treated them with respect and dignity, and telling them the truth and understanding them as an individual. And if anything, they're going to come back and buy the product from you later. And even if they don't, they're saying good things about you and how you treated them. And that's the Google review now that they're saying, even if they didn't buy the product. And yes, that will help you make more sales. Yeah. Okay. And so when you think about it, it all ties into the golden rule. The golden rule. Because when we do upon others as we would want done upon thyself, we realize, yes, I know how to do sales better when I put myself into the shoes of the customer and know what it would like to be them. And then, yes, then I know how I would want to be treated as a customer. So then, as the customer service and salesperson, I know how to treat them. Yeah. Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, for example, when I first started working in customer service and sales, yeah, I did just kind of go for the sale because you know, I still didn't know what I was doing, but I learned. And I learned that when I was just trying to sell to people, I also realized, yeah, I wouldn't want to be treated like that either. I wouldn't. And in my first year, I probably sold about $250,000 worth of product. And when I started becoming a needs specialist, as opposed to just a sales guy, I sold $650,000 in the exact same store the next year. Okay, and so really that's almost like three times the amount of sales. And I always told the truth, but I also had to make sure that I researched all my products and knew them so well that when I asked the questions of the who, what, when, where, and why, and how, I then realized that I had the knowledge to answer those questions effectively. And if you don't have that knowledge and you're first starting out in sales and customer service, um, it's not wrong to ask another salesperson that has this knowledge to help you with that. I would not feel ashamed if I didn't have the answer for something, but I would then, diligently do my best to find that answer for somebody if I didn't know it. Because again, it's better to be honest if you don't know what the answer would be, not having that knowledge on what they have a question about. Whereas if you lie to them, just kind of giving them an answer that's not actually the truth, they'll find out. They will. Maybe even it's 4 months later, you see. Maybe it's 5 months later. Maybe it's 3 years later. But they find out. They do. Because they're going to use the product. And then when they find out that you kind of just gave an answer that wasn't actually something that you knew, yeah, loyalty goes way down. And now that Google review is, 2 stars instead of 5. Yeah. So again, when you think about all these things, you'll realize that telling the truth, seeking to understand people, and listening first, and knowing which questions to ask and continue listening because you want to be gathering that information that they will allow you to understand. But you have to know which questions to ask. Okay? Because, if you're just asking questions like, I mean, whatever, what kind of pizza you like, I mean, well, if the product isn't pizza, maybe that, it's a question that is kind of like banter. But more often than not, that's maybe not why they're at their store when it's not a pizza store. Right? Yeah. So you kind of want to keep it, to the point. Yeah. If they want to talk about pizza for a bit, maybe not a bad idea. Maybe not a bad idea. And then even moving forward, you also have to realize that some people actually might just be coming into your store and wanting to talk to you about something that has nothing to do with the things that you sell in your store. And you are not a jerk. You are not being bad to them when you just politely, excuse yourself and just say, thank you very much for coming into the store. I'm glad that we had this conversation. Be polite about it, but be honest. Be honest. And I do have a job here where it is my job to sell these things, and I do appreciate the conversation that we've had. But I'm going to have to excuse myself simply because it is my job to work within this store's parameters and what we sell here. And thank you very much for understanding this. Yeah, because it did happen to me. Some people would just want to chat. Maybe they're lonely. I don't know. But then they realize that if it's the sales guy and they're lonely, that they can just chat with. you also, you have to do your job. And if they can't understand that, yeah, maybe they will put a bad review. But what would they say on the Google review? The guy didn't want to talk to me about my date that I was going on tonight, and you know what I mean? Yeah, that would be information to any other customer that would simply tell them, uh, yeah, that's not going to deter me from going to the store. When all they wanted to chit chat was about was what to do on the date, or what kind of pizza to get or whatever, and that it maybe has nothing to do with what they're selling at the store. Yeah. So, you also have to know, yeah, when to excuse yourself. Because there are people that, just want to chat, and maybe they just want to waste your time. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad, but actually, some people are actually a competitor that work at another store. And that's actually why they're just chatting with you. And it did happen to me. It did happen to me. And you have to become aware of these kinds of things because these are all things that you will come into contact with when you're working in the sales and customer service environment. But then I'm going to go to the next thing. I know that the governments, they're always breaking up monopolies. Breaking up monopolies. And when there is a company or corporation that controls basically so much of a specific part of an industry, like 60, 70, 80% of it, the government likes to work to break that monopoly up. And let's think about it. Let's think about it. If there was one corporation, okay, and it was a monopoly, and everybody worked for that corporation, what most people would say is that's communism. But how would it not be communism? And how would that monopoly of an umbrella that would be one corporation for all, and that corporation for all, okay, and all for that corporation? Why would we go for that corporation? Okay, because if that corporation gives us the best deal, gives us the best customer service, treats us the best, and has the orientation and the training for the people that work there that allow us to do our best and give ourselves the best, okay, including the best deal, why would that be a bad thing? And why would it not be communism? And why would it? Because it would be communism if everybody was always kind of just working, and no matter how good they did at their job, everybody would get paid the same. Yeah, that would be communism. But how could an umbrella of one corporation not be communist? Okay, because it's not actually just that simple. That would be the corporation that everybody would work for that would have incentive. Still embracing the capitalist spirit, but oh, yes, still being the monopoly. And when that monopoly, let's just say, is the one corporation that we all work for, when Billy Bob is, only doing, 50 units, let's just say, of whatever it is in an hour, and Joe, the dough, whatever, doesn't matter. Joe is doing 150 units in the same hour, and the average over the 8 hours is, Joe did like 1,000 over the 8 hours, and then Billy Bob did 500. Well, I'm pretty sure Joe should get twice as much money. Yeah, and why? Because then Joe doing more, getting more, is incentivized to do more. And if Joe gets just as much as Billy Bob when he's doing more, what happens the second day is he's just like Billy Bob because he doesn't see the point of doing more. Yeah. But you will come to realize that in this scenario, no, it would not be communism. No, it would be not. Because if we all get the best deal with the monopoly, and we would, and if we all get not just the best treatment as well with this monopoly, because we're all getting trained on these kinds of things like I'm talking about, okay, and we all earn the trust and exude the trust and honesty when we all work for this, you see, it's almost like the trust corporation. It's the loyal corporation, and it's like that one big family network that also gives us, yeah, it would give us all the best deal. It would. Um, but not only that, it is the best thing for the proletariat, the worker, because when you're incentivized and you're getting the best deal with the best training on how to do these things, what happens is you always know when I do more, I get more. Yeah, and you want to know that as a proletariat. Because how could communism be the proletariat's ideology on what would be best for them when if they did more, they would get just as much as the guy that did less? How could that be in the proletariat's revolution that would actually be ideal for a proletariat? It isn't, because then you actually don't see a reason to do more because you don't get rewarded for doing more. And that is not what is best for the proletariat. No. And when Joe gets twice as much as Billy Bob maybe makes the complaint and says, I want as much as Joe did. And then the manager says, well, you only did half as much as Joe. So if you want as much as Joe did, you got to do as much as Joe. And what's good about that is now Billy Bob wants to be more like Joe. And when we all want to do more in order to all get more, yeah, that's the kind of greed that you actually want to be promoting, because that's a greed that is no longer a bad thing, is it? No, because when you're incentivized to be greedy, but you do more to get more, yes, that is a greed that is actually in everybody's interest, because when we all do more, yes, we do all get more. Yeah. Okay. So, anyways, that's kind of just like my two bits on customer service and sales. And yeah, I had people when I was working in my customer service and sales job. They would come back just to see me. They would, and but that also became a problem. Do you want to know why? Because yeah, I would have to have 2 days off in the week. You know, I would work five, and when other people in the store, you know, were in an environment and didn't have the training like I had in order to have the same kind of resolution with the customers that I would be doing, sometimes they, you know, would just leave and just say, you know, when's that Luca guy going to be back? Which is not in the interest of the customer. It's not. And moving on with this, you also realize that you want everybody to be the best they can be. You do. Yeah. And you do want to raise the bar higher, but you want to be giving the incentive for the bar to be raised. Without that incentive, yeah, you're going to start leaning towards kind of a communist ideological model that everybody gets less with. It's just the truth. It's the truth. Anyways, and so talking about these kinds of things, there shouldn't be a problem with raising the bar. And even if you raise the bar so high, nobody could ever match it. You're a source of inspiration, not something that they should be jealous of. And that should be part of the training as well. Is if you can never do as much as that guy, that's not a problem, and that's not something you should be jealous of. Because if you tell yourself that you can't do as much as that guy, it's you deciding that for yourself, which means you are being self-defeatist. And you are defeating yourself, saying that you can never get there, because you can. You can. When you tell yourself that you can. And this is why the mind can be a blessing or your worst enemy. Because the only reason somebody tells themselves that they can't do something and then they can't do it is because they made that decision for themselves. And they actually just brought that upon themselves. Okay? And when you have the belief that you could be at the bar where the guy raised the bar high enough, and you do believe you can get there, the other source of inspiration is when that guy raises the bar so high, and that guy is always getting more and more and more and more and more. Yet you're gonna want to also be like that guy so you can get more. Okay, that's why you always want to reward the guys that are doing more for you, because that is the source of motivation. Yeah. And this is how we can work with the greed that we all have. Because it's actually very human to be greedy. But how can we make it a good thing? A good thing. How can we see the good in the greed. You see? And when we allow the incentive, you see, we can make greed a good thing. And this is why, yes, we do want to reward people more that do more. We do. Because this is how greed is something that brings about good. Good. Yeah. Anyway, so, yeah, that's kind of just like my thing on that kind of stuff. And, yeah. So, and to be honest, yeah, I would often be in the sales environment, and I did raise the bar just like so high, like so high, and nobody in the store could even come even close to me, like not even close, and it's actually kind of sad. It was very unfortunate, but what happened is I got ganged up on because I just raised the bar so high, that everybody else just felt like I was making them look bad. Yeah. But if the company had said, well, when you're more like him getting more, yeah, you'll get more. But why is it a bad thing? Because I'm also the guy that they got rid of. Yeah. And then that store isn't there anymore. Yeah. And people would come back to the store and they say, hey, where's Luca? And they'd be like, oh, we let him go. And they'd be like, why would you do that? He was the best. Yeah, that's why I came back here. And if he's not here, I'm not coming back. And they did. And when I phoned into the store just to see how they were doing, they said, we haven't made our sales goal ever since you left. Yeah. So that's the reason why you never actually want to get rid of the guy that just raises the bar higher all the time. And it's never something that you would want to get jealous of as another staff member because he is making you look good. He is making you look good. And if it was something that you were jealous of, you then come to the conclusion later. If that guy was making our store look good, and we were working at that store with him. Now that he's not here, even when he, maybe he made us look bad when we couldn't do as good a job as him. We're not making as much money there anymore, and the store's not even here anymore, and we don't even have our jobs, which is actually what happened. But anyways, yeah. So don't get rid of your stars. Don't get rid of your all stars. And just learn how you can make the source of greed into the all-star that is always being rewarded and as kind of the shining example on why it is better for everybody else. Because it is. It is better for everybody else. You don't get rid of a great man that is doing great things. And if you are, want to be great like him, the only reason you're not going to get there is just because you tell yourself that you can't. And you could. You could. You can get there. And again, the great man is allowing you to look better even when you may think that you look worse when you can't do what he does. Because, yeah, he's part of the big family that you work for. And when that great man is still working for what the big family is all cooperating on, that's right. He's doing more for you too.